Hello, my name is Kai, and I am a bit of a rambler. I like to travel, learn, and tell stories. And this episode was almost about something else. And I was like, yeah, okay, I guess I'll do a little bit of organization and kind of make. And then someone asked me a question about the street food I bought in Colombia from a guy with a grill on the side of the road. And I was like, wait a minute, have I not made a general street food episode yet? Because boy, oh boy, for my money, for my reputation, you cannot beat food like street food. I just made that up. I like street food a lot. I have been eating it since, I think, the third day since I left the US over a decade ago. And while I can't say I've eaten street food every day, I have definitely eaten more portions of street food than the number of days I have been out here for over a decade, for sure. Because in China, I love everything there, and I could easily get 4 or 5 street foods a day, and it would be crazy if I didn't get one very often during the week. In Thailand, I almost exclusively eat street food. Kebabs, turmeric sausages, pad kra pao kai dao, mango, chili fish, all-day seafood, buffets. So I can't imagine that I have been abroad more days than the times I have gotten street food. So where do they have good street food? Everywhere. It's like everywhere. My favorite is all of Asia and probably Central and South America. And it's not just the food itself, the flavors and variety of street food, but the culture and its overall advantages over indoor food. Street food, it's not that it's unregulated. You can get in trouble if you sell unsafe food. You'll still get in trouble for selling unsafe food, regardless of whether you're inside or outside. So street food vendors won't use unsafe ingredients any more often than indoor restaurants will. But it's much more practically addressed as an issue. A lot of these street food people don't have a lot of options, but they do know how to cook, and they know that the people around them want to eat. So, if you're in most of Asia, Central, South, or East Asia, people who have a passion for cooking simple dishes that people enjoy, and people who don't have a lot of money to start up their own restaurant, or older people who don't have a lot of options for employment left but would like to bring in some money for their grandchildren, whatever the circumstances, the passion for the food is so fundamental with street vendors. And I want to address the safety, I think, up top, because the thing I like so much about all of Asia and all of the Central American and South American street vendors is the lack of regulation concerning whether or not you're allowed to open up a stall. I don't mind if they have a rule that says you have to use safe food, and they do, all the countries have that. But countries like the US or a lot of Western Europe make it extremely difficult to have a food stall that is not physically attached to a permanent building. And there's really no reason to do that. Because food safety-wise, the food safety is regulated by the ingredients the cook is allowed to use by the law. If they violate that, okay. There isn't a difference if your grill is inside a building or outside of a building. Obviously, there's less wind, but there's no real tangible difference in the function of the grill bed. It heats the food up to a safe temperature, and then you can give it to the person. And whoever wants to heat up that grill and be the grill master doesn't need to invest in 4 walls and a roof that don't benefit the person selling grilled chicken or grilled pork or chorizos or stinky tofu. I'm probably going to be talking about a lot of food in this episode because I'm not kidding when I say that I've ordered more street food portions than I have lived days outside of the country. How many is that's like 4,000 days outside of the country? We can say that. Say over 4,000 days outside of the US, just going country to country, and it would be pretty surprising to me if I didn't get more street food portions than 4,000. Because just on my walk back to my apartment from my second school in Chengdu, there were literally like 20 different stalls. And that's just on my one corner of one block of the street, a 5-minute walk from my school to the front gate of my apartment building. Yeah, and a day in China for the first 3 years I was there was go to street food, get my jianbing, maybe 2 jianbings if I was hungry that day. Probably eat lunch at a restaurant somewhere. But then at evening, I would go around looking for someone selling chuar, which is just a grill and a bunch of folding tables and just barbecue, Chinese barbecue. And those guys, that was street food. They didn't have a permanent indoor restaurant a lot of the time. They rode their bicycle with the cooler of stuff and a grill, put coals in the grill, boom, barbecue. Oh, and street food in Thailand all day, every day. And regarding the safety, this is anecdotal, but I really have eaten thousands of street food meals, and that's the only type of meal I can say I've never gotten sick from. I have gotten food poisoning a few times around the world, pretty rarely. My stomach is good with that, and I have a very sensitive sense of smell, at least for rotten food. I can't differentiate things too great. I mean, I can't, like, if you give me a ramekin of dressing, I can't be like, yes, celery, fennel, and anise star. But if the mayo base of that dressing is going bad, I'm going to smell that pretty quickly and stop eating it. So I don't get food poisoning often. I have got it before, but out of the thousands of times I have gotten street food, I've never gotten sick from eating the street food. And there are several great reasons for street vendors to self-regulate their food safety so closely. One, the regulation that applies to all food vendors, whether or not they're inside a building. You have to use safe ingredients that are healthy for people. And I think is even more important for street vendors and what makes them so averse to a health risk. They're almost always cooking at a high heat, directly above coal or propane. There's no counters around for them to set down food on the side. Their customers are picking up their food right away, straight from the hot grill. So the food's not sitting around anywhere. It doesn't have time, even more so than in an indoor restaurant. It doesn't have the time to deteriorate as much. Most people who get street food get it and eat it right there. And the person is cooking it right there. So if they screw up, if they drop it on the floor, you can see it and they're not going to give you that because they know you can see the mistake they made. Which feeds into it more. I think street food vendors and street food chefs, cooks, are a lot safer and more careful than behind-the-scene cooks I know in restaurants. Because I'm sure many of you have been in the back of house in restaurants at some service job and seen someone drop something on the floor and then throw it back on the plate or on the frying pan and then on the plate. I have seen them do that. Sometimes less than accidentally. But street food cooks can't really get away with that. So just that also is safe. So it's usually cooked at a very high heat directly in front of you. You can see that it's been on the heat the whole time and it's hot. It's at a high, stable temperature. It's almost always on a coal bed that's cooking the food. It's not lying around waiting to get old or stale or anything like that. And I think the most important thing is that if the food is bad, people don't go to that guy anymore. I think that's the most important metric by which I judge food safety. How many people are still going to that restaurant? If they aren't going there, whatever it is, a restaurant inside or an outside street stall, they either got sick or the food isn't good. Now, if it's a restaurant, they can put out a sign that says new chef, or they can put out a sign saying new menu, new management. They can hire someone to advertise for their business. They can advertise themselves, they can go hand out flyers, get things going by word of mouth. And the cooks are impersonal. They're in the back of the house usually. You don't know who cooked and who screwed up or who makes the bad food on Wednesdays versus Fridays. Like, if there's a different guy on Friday and you go there on Friday and have a great meal, and you take all your friends next Wednesday and it turns out to be a different chef and the food's terrible, you don't even know who made the bad meal and you don't know who made the good meal. I love with street food, you know who it is because it is the same guy or it is the same couple of guys or the same old man and woman. Those are my favorite whenever it's like an 80-year-old grandpa and grandma cooking together, like yelling at each other to get the ingredients and then like expertly putting it together in front of you. But that's what's so unique about street food is that you know your chef, and it's really easy to create a rapport with them. If you go there more than once, they will remember you and they'll be excited that you're there again. Because every customer that likes their food is another potential customer that is going to spread their stall word of mouth wise. If you're going there regularly, it means you like it, or even if it's just convenient for you, when someone asks you about the food, you'll say, oh, I got it from those guys right up the street. It's pretty good. Boom, advertisements, word of mouth publicity for that street food. So every time you go to a place more than once, they're very excited to see you, and they take even more care, or they give you a little extra, whatever, but they take even more care with their customer care than they ordinarily do, which again, I think is better than most indoor restaurants because you're watching them. And even if you're not watching them, someone's watching them. They're out in public and they only have one grill most of the time. So it's not like you have to be careful watching how they prepare everything and all that. All the action's taking place in one area. If you watch that, you know what they did. And if it's good or bad, you know where that happened. It happened on their grill, right there. And that is why I don't think regulating the physical location of sidewalk food vendors is as necessary or important as many Western countries make it out to be. Because again, safety-wise, every country, you have to use safe ingredients. There's no country where they're like, yeah, you can use dog shit beef. That's totally okay. Like, you can't. That's not okay. Food safety rules are critical in every society. And if anyone used a bad ingredient, they remember that guy's face and they're not going to go to him again. So street food vendors are way more careful than indoor restaurants who can put lemon juice on meat or sear it extra so you won't notice the color variation in the meat. There's a lot of stuff you can do in the back of house of a restaurant to make less fresh produce and meat look more fresh or disguise the taste. It's a lot more difficult to do that in front of the customer who is standing 2 feet away from you, orders the food. You take out the food you're going to grill right in front of them, put it on the grill, they can see it. And I do think that's part of the reason I've never gotten sick, and I have eaten street food thousands of times. Because every single person who owns a street food stand, and I've talked with a lot of them, after you go to the same person a few times, waiting around for 5 or 10 minutes, especially if you're a repeat customer, people want to chat. Whenever I do get friendly with one of them and I'm like, okay, I'm going to that lady for fried squid from now on in this country, after a while they'll tell you about it, and anyone who talks about the safety, anytime that's even broached, it's like, well, here's the grill. This is a fresh squid. Now it's on the grill. And another thing that's interesting about that, if you look at safety guidelines in general in many countries, they're not as strict or technical as you might expect those regulations to be. They don't say, like, the color has to be exactly this, and the weight per length of whatever. There's not a ton of technical specifications for food safety regulations, even in highly regulated countries like the US. There are tons of regulations for where you are allowed to cook, but as for the ingredients themselves, it doesn't say there can be this much brown percentage on the lettuce. It might say it cannot be rotten, but there are far fewer technical regulatory specifics than you might imagine there are regarding food safety. Every food safety guideline I've read, and I've been in those food safety classes for when I worked in a restaurant, it's about heat. It's about how high the heat is for this meat, how was the meat processed, how was it stored, how was it cooked, and then that meat is safe. How high, how long you cook it. And if you're indoors, you can't see how high the heat is or how long they cook it. You can only taste it after they bring it out to you. Whereas when you're in a street food, you can see there is the bed of coals, and you can start a stopwatch. This is exactly how long they cooked it. If you want them to cook it more, they definitely will. They will just leave the meat on there until you're satisfied. So there's no real advantage of having an indoor kitchen for the customer. There's an advantage for the back of house staff and the manager because they can manipulate the product in the back however they want to. And most people do not. A lot of restaurant owners I know are very proud of their profession. And they care about their customers and they care about the food they produce. So this is rare, but it certainly happens. It definitely 100% happens because I've seen it multiple times. And even if I had never seen it, who would I trust more? The cook I cannot see, or the cook I can see preparing my meal right in front of me, with ingredients that I can also see? I definitely trust the guy I can see in front of me with the ingredients that I can keep an eye on. Or if I know that my stomach gets upset if I eat rare meat. Mine does not. I love rare meat. But if that was a thing, I know exactly how long he's cooking that, exactly what it looks like, if it's to my preference. And you don't have to send anything back. You just cook it until it's how you want it and take it from a street food stall. In a restaurant, you might have to send it back until you get the exact right thing back. And back of house people don't like it when you send stuff back, contrary to popular belief. I'm just kidding. I'm sure everybody understands. You shouldn't be sending food back unless there's something incredibly wrong with it. So, safety-wise, safety issues, all in a pile right there. The heat is the same in either case, indoors or at a street food stall. And you can see the heat at the street food stall, whereas you can't see it indoors. The ingredients, you can see them at the street food stall, can't see them indoors. Your cook, you see him at the street food stall, can't see him indoors. All those things I mentioned, and my track record, having eaten thousands of street foods in dozens of countries, without once getting ill that I could directly attribute to street food. I can't remember a day that I was sick on the same day I ate street food, but I can very clearly remember eating in a McDonald's once and then getting violently ill. All combine to make me think that street food is safer than indoor restaurants in general. As a mode of dining, street foods to me make a lot more sense as a safer mode of dining. You can keep an eye on everything. The safety standards are the same, whether it's in a restaurant or outdoors. You know your chef. And most importantly, they know you. They know that you came to them for food, and if you don't come back, it's because you didn't like it for some reason. And they know you know them. They know that if you got a bad meal and you see their face, you're going to skirt around that stall and keep walking next time, instead of stopping for another chorizo, or stinky tofu, chodof, or liang tai. Whatever it is, that street food vendor's livelihood depends on the person who is watching them enjoying the food they make right in front of that customer, which you might think would cause for pressure, which I'm sure it does happen to some people, but most street vendors are, I find, a lot more casual and easygoing and comfortable cooking than a lot of restaurant staff. It doesn't matter how many people are ordering the food. The guy in front of the grill, he points to the grill and he's like, yeah, there are 6 steaks. When these 6 are done, the next 6 people will get their next 6 steaks. And because you're not waiting at a table, looking at the closed door and wall you cannot see through, you're not wondering how long it's going to take to get my steak. Even if this has happened so many times to me. I'll go with a group of friends to a restaurant. They nearly invariably choose one of the popular restaurants or one that has a lot of people in it, and we go at the most popular eating time. We'll all sit down, we'll order food, and then 20 minutes later they're like, where the heck is it? We are 6 people at one table. There are 10 other tables of 6 people each. Half of them don't have their food yet, so we're not going to get our food for a while. We know that. We can know that before we sit down. We can know that before we get too far into the restaurant. We can decide to go to a less crowded restaurant. But Yeah, when you travel with a group and people they usually choose the most popular time, and it's gonna take longer. And everyone gets anxious. But if you go to a street vendor, even if, like I said, he can only fit 6 steaks on his grill, and there are 20 people waiting, none of them are pissed off or angry. They are looking at the 6 steaks, and they're like, okay, 2 more 6 steak rows, and then I'm gonna get my steak. And then they see him make the first steak, they're like, okay, that took like 6 minutes, so I'm gonna get my steak in 12 minutes. If you can see the food, how long it takes them to cook the food, and the food, especially you see a good food go to someone else, you're like, oh boy, I can't wait for mine. And if you look at these cooks, if you're in the back of house, if you've ever been in the back of house during a busy restaurant day, you know how loud and angry and anxious everybody cooking in the back is. All the line cooks are pissed off and sweating, and fairly, because the customers out front are complaining. Unfairly, you cannot go to a full restaurant where you can see that there are tables with the food not on the tables yet and expect to get your meal in any sort of a timely fashion. Power to the line cooks. Be cool to waitstaff and restaurant staff. I don't care how much you paid for a meal. You are paying someone else to do you the favor of cooking for you. It's how I have always felt about going to a restaurant, and how I still feel about it. Even unless it's something egregious, unless there are bugs on the plate, it's very difficult for me to sympathize with someone who didn't get the exact dish they ordered in the exact way they ordered it. Because you're not paying for that exact dish, you're paying someone else, another real human being, to take on the trouble of creating a meal for you. To actually do the work you are choosing not to do. If you want it exactly how you like it, then you should cook it yourself. If you go to a restaurant and you get something that's pretty close, great, you got lucky. That is how I look at restaurants. It's totally okay if you don't. But this person in the back making your food doesn't inherently know everything about your tastes, regardless of how meticulously you order something. Back to street food, though. Safety. As I hope is pretty clear, street food is, on its face, a lot safer than food in a restaurant because you can keep an eye on it. And the chef is right there, and they want more customers. They don't want fewer customers. And the safety standards are the same, whether they're indoors or a guy on the sidewalk with a grill. They're all following the same safety standards and heat standards for duration of time rules. Okay, so aside from safety regulations, I also appreciate the itinerant nature of street stalls. They don't have to stay in one place. If they choose the wrong neighborhood, maybe they have to move on. They'll stay there for a couple weeks, and then they'll go to another place. But if they do choose the right place, that can become a staple of the neighborhood. You can live in a neighborhood for 10 years, and then one day you'll discover, oh shoot, there's a new stall there. I wonder if it's good. And if it's good, it's like winning the lottery. If it's good and it's one of your favorite foods, it's like winning the lottery and punching a baby in the face. That's what people like to do, right? It's so much. It's, for me, anyway, I will say that one of the reasons I love street food is that when I discover a new vendor who has one of my favorite foods, and I know he's going to be in that location. If I find a street vendor and they have one of my favorite foods, after I find out that they've cooked it correctly, which they nearly almost always do, I go back and I ask them, are you going to be here tomorrow? What days are you in this location? And these days, a lot of them have like QR codes so that you can track the food stall itself if it does move around. But if not, that cook, I mean, I've asked a lot of good street stall vendors, street food vendors, where they are on times of the day, and every single one is like Mondays 4 to 9, Tuesdays 4. They just rattle off the schedule that they know they're there every day, and then Saturdays 2 blocks over at the park, and like they just know it down. So when I see any kind of a new street stall, I get pretty excited, and then when I try it and it's great, or it's something I like in particular, I'm even more it's just wonderful. It's this divine stroke of fate, kissing me gently on the forehead. The other nice thing is that I like to walk. I love walking around a city and discovering all the things around it. I was just talking to someone about this today, And I said that I usually, when I land in a country for the first time, I like to spend at least a week walking through all of the streets in my neighborhood and familiarizing myself with my location. Even if I'm staying there for a month, I invariably enjoy my time better if I freely walk around the neighborhood and document. I don't write anything down, but I clock everything. My brain automatically clocks it because it's usually has to do with food or exercise. And I know where the outdoor exercise gym is. 2 blocks away, 1 block north. Right, second left, boom, now I can exercise for free every day. This is the nicest one. I'll walk around the neighborhood looking for the nicest equipment, and then that's the outdoor exercise equipment I use every day. I really like exercising outside. Exercising inside is not very comfortable for me, and it doesn't smell as good as exercising outside. Even if the facilities are fundamental, I appreciate calisthenics and bodyweight exercises anyway. And then, after I exercise a bit, I'm looking for the street food. I will certainly take note of any restaurants around me, and I try plenty of indoor restaurants or restaurants located inside a building, even with a window or something that they sell food from. But I also note all of the street food vendors, and I'll try something from each of them. And again, invariably, there's one guy or one old lady who's better than everybody else because she uses the spices that her grandmother taught her, or they mix their oil with a particular seasoning or particular sauce, or they just don't overcook the meat. That's probably the biggest one. I like less cooked meat. I like it to be done. I don't want raw chicken or pork. I'm fine with extremely rare beef. But as soon as the meat is cooked, I need it off the grill and in my face. And it's really easy to do that because they don't cook one meat better than another meat, not significantly, that I've found. I try one bit of stuff that I kind of like from all the stalls, and if it's good, great, I'll try the other thing, or I'll get that again. But if it's not good, then they're probably not going to cook another thing better. And I have gone back and tried. If I don't like something, I'll go back. In the beginning, I used to go back to a stall and try it again just to see, but I don't think it's ever happened that I went back a second time and it's the same cook, which it usually is, and they fixed whatever they messed up the first time. That's very rare. So yeah, for the first week, I walk around in the evenings, I try a little bit from each street vendor, and I'm like, cool, that's the good one. 20-minute walk away, that's another good one. That's 15 minutes in the other direction. And I just know where the great food is. And street food is faster. It's usually a grill and it's a simple meat with side dishes or something. But take the chorizo, for example. You can get a chorizo. It's going to take less than 10 minutes to cook fully. And you're going to get a small side salad probably, your choice of sauces. You can choose to eat there on a folding table or take away to your house and eat in the comfort of your own home watching TV, which I love to do. And it's quick. There are no reservations, there's no seating, there's no waiting for utensils. They're all in the bag they give you. So you can go from thinking about, wait, am I hungry? To being at home eating a great meal with side dishes and watching your favorite TV show or listening to a podcast within the span of 15 minutes. Or you can go to a restaurant that's only in one location and you have to walk there and maybe a couple is arguing behind you or maybe a baby is screaming. If you are watching something, you're probably watching it on your phone. It's not as enjoyable as watching it on a larger screen. It's just very comfortable to take your food and be able to take it home and eat it exactly how you like to eat it. Maybe you have special sauces that you like to eat with your steak that are very unconventional. Perhaps you like strawberry vinaigrette on your steak, but you can't go to a restaurant and get strawberry vinaigrette on your steak unless you're lucky. Maybe they have it for their salads and they're okay with putting it on there for you. But it's pretty great when you can just order it, walk home in 5 minutes, pour whatever the sauce is that you like on it, and start eating and doing whatever you want to do. Eating and watching TV, or watching a movie. Or walking around in your living room, talking to yourself and shoveling steak in your mouth. Maybe you love listening to great travel podcasts while eating. Everybody likes to eat differently. We all have our quirks, and with street food, if you don't want to eat in front of the street food stand, you just get to take it home. But if you do want to eat in front of the street food stand, oftentimes it's pretty awesome, especially if it's a quiet street. I love eating street food outside. If it is a busy street, I don't. I don't like being next to loud cars and exhaust. But if it's 1 block away from any main street, that's a pretty comfortable environment for me to eat food in. And there's definitely something that humans feel, because all people, if you walk into a restaurant versus you walk past people eating and drinking on the sidewalk or on the side of the road or in a park, the people on the side of the road or in the park look comfortable. On the side of a quiet road, they're sprawled out usually a little more. They're just more relaxed. People like to see nature. And if you can be outside looking at trees and being scientifically calmed down because you have looked at trees and greenery, and be eating and having a beer if that's what you like, or a sports drink if not, just as, if not more importantly, it's a more comfortable group setting a lot of the time, being outside, dining outside as well. Noise in a room that bounces the noise all around back at all of the other patrons in the restaurant is a lot more irritating than if someone's talking too loud with their friends but you're all outside. That noise is not bouncing off all of the walls and ceiling into your ears. And if it's cold outside and you're getting barbecue, if you're getting something hot and it's chilly outside, you can just recline in one of the outside chairs at a simple table with good, complex food that you know you like because you've gone to this place a few times. And that's another great thing. Street foods don't have a lot of menu items. It's cool to have a lot of menu items, but that is a lot of work for the restaurant to maintain. I generally tend to think that the fewer menu items on a menu, the better each menu item is going to be when I order it. Just from experience, ordering food from a menu of 8 items versus ordering food from a menu of 50 items, the fewer the items, the better quality of the food. Because they have less things to worry about. They have less things to store. They have less things to watch and make sure it hasn't gone bad. If the restaurant has a walk-in freezer with literally dozens or hundreds of ingredients to keep track of and make sure they don't go bad, versus the street food guy on the side of the road who has one cooler, and he only has to make sure the temperature remains constant in that one cooler and that the various types of meat are not going bad in that one area, a lot easier for that guy to keep track of the freshness of his food. And with fewer menu items, they have more practice making those menu items, these grill cooks on the side of the street. If that street stall has 5 menu items, and he gets 100 orders equitably, then he has practiced each dish 20 times. Whereas, if you go to a restaurant with 20 menu items, and they get 100 orders equitably, the cook has only practiced making each dish 5 times. The fewer menu items on a menu means that whoever the cook is, and again, if you have a street food, it's almost always just one person, has practiced that or those few menu items many more times than anyone in an indoor restaurant with 30 items or 40 items on their menu or 80 items on their menu has practiced making that food. The street food guy is more comfortable making his steaks because he's made them thousands of times more than the guy who makes a steak in a not steakhouse restaurant. There are a lot of good cooks who can remember the entire menu and they can make a lot of great food. But the street food cooks have the advantage of being a specialist in whatever few menu items they choose. And there are some, obviously, that you can get a longer... Okay, like if it's a fried rice stand, yeah, fried rice with pork, fried rice with squid, fried rice with chicken, beef, so on. But it's all fried rice. And if you look at their back of house, which is their cooler down there, they have one cooler that all their ingredients fit in. They are specializing in one type of food. If you go into any indoor restaurant that specializes even in more than one type of food, look at how much space that has to be taken up by their products and ingredients that they're going to use to cook, or how much space and different types of equipment they need to make different things. How much practice have they had on all of that equipment? I can't count the number of times that I've gone into a restaurant with an extensive menu. I have asked for something, and they say, okay, hang on, let me look up how to make it. And they take out an appliance that it seems like they haven't used in a year. And it'll turn out good most of the time. Like, if you're behind the counter, you're probably a good cook if you're there. But they aren't a specialist in everything there, and I don't expect them to be. I'm saying, just in general, it's much more difficult to be a specialist if you're in an indoor restaurant that has so many menu offerings. Whereas the street stall, if they serve steak, liver, and sausages, that dude needs a pair of tongs and a grill. The part of the cooler that isn't taken up with meat can have 10 different kinds of vegetables in it, and he can make your steak or your liver or your sausage according to how you like it. You can get mayonnaise on the side, or salsa on the side, or mustard on the side. You can get a green salad, or you can get chopped onions and leek. But all of his specialization is focused in this one tiny area, and he's always cooking basically the same dish with a different flair here or there as customers request it. I think that is very important. A chef can be great, and many chefs are great, even if no matter how many dishes they have. I've been to plenty of restaurants with dozens of menu items, and they can make a lot of the food good, but very often they don't make all of the different foods good. So I have to gamble, like, well, okay, this guy is pretty good at sushi. Is he also good at ramen? Or flip, they have great ramen. Is their sushi any good? That one, that's kind of like a dichotomy. I very rarely find sushi and ramen that are good in the same place. That fits perfectly into what I'm talking about, because those are completely different preparation. Those are completely different skill sets. Those shouldn't be in the same restaurant, I think. It's okay if they are. It's totally fine if they are. I understand how modern cuisine works, modern food preparation. But that is why if a restaurant serves ramen and sushi, it's very often that they have a just sushi chef, because it's so specialized. The temperature of the fish, how thickly you cut it, how quickly you cut it, how long it is sitting cut versus on top of the rice, the temperature of the rice, how fresh the rice, when was it last made? Not more than 3 hours. Oh shoot, it's already 4 o'clock. That's why they often have a separate sushi chef if they also serve sushi. And I assume that's why every time I go to a restaurant with ramen and sushi, and there's one chef, either the sushi or the ramen will be less carefully prepared or with less skill than the other. Because that's just the sushi. Let's go to the ramen side. If someone orders ramen, they have to get out of the cool, precise mindset of intricately organized sushi nigiri or sushi rolls, where the cold temperatures are important, and you have to switch tack to all hot dishes, a very complex broth if you want to make it good. A pho, for example, they have sushi at pho restaurants, and I don't think I've ever gotten sushi at a pho restaurant of any quality. And the pho can be amazing, but they should just get rid of the sushi, because even if American clients expect all Asian foods to be under one roof, I think it very rarely serves the restaurant to offer such different foods under the same roof, unless they have basically completely separate departments within the restaurant. And they're like, you guys are cold food sushi people, we will take care of the hot food, complex broths, noodle making over here for the pho or for the ramen or something. The foods are just so different, you cannot blame anyone for not being able to transition between something like sushi and ramen, or for not consistently delivering high-quality food from two completely different prep systems. And those are just two types of food. What if it's sushi, ramen, and omelets? And donburi, pork rice bowls, and steak. Like, all of these different foods, they are common foods, so it might seem like it shouldn't be that hard to make any of them and switch between, but it is. It's very difficult to switch between completely different modes of all of those things are made completely differently. The very rapid nature of you have to be careful making omelets, especially if it's like a Korean rolled omelet or a folded omelet. Switch to steak. How long did you let it sit out? Did you marinate it? How much salt did you rub into the surfaces? Did you rub it into both sides, or do you prefer one? Did you put butter on it? How thick is the char going to be? How crunchy is the char going to be? Also, one customer wants it medium rare and the other wants it well done. Switch to sushi. Is it a sushi roll, which is thinner cuts, or is it a nigiri, which is a thicker cut of fish? Is the maguro too close to the glass so that the temperature of the front of the fish is increasing at a rate faster than the back of the fish? Do you have to rotate that? Do you have the green onions, fresh avocado already ready to go to put in the roll? Does the avocado have a brown spot? Switch to pho. How much broth is left in the big stock pot that we made the broth in? Is the temperature adjusted correctly so that the remainder of broth that we have in there won't burn on the bottom when we lose the bottom fourth of that pot? Did we already take the oxtail out? Has the oxtail been sitting out long enough? Has it been sitting out too long? There are so many considerations with each type of food, and I am amazed by cooks and chefs. Not just for the fact that they would even attempt to make all of these different foods, but from the fact that sometimes all of them taste pretty good. I'm not saying that a cook cannot make many different dishes and they can't taste good. I'm simply saying that they have not made one type of dish on one type of equipment as many times as that dude out there flipping steaks, sausages, or livers on the same grill for 10 years. Or even 1 year. He just, every day that man is in business, that single chef, he's making a few things and he's getting more consistent at it. He's learning the better tricks. He can hear the sound of the fat bubbling or the meat hissing against the grate. And he knows, like, oh, it's almost done. The more you cook a thing on a piece of equipment, the more you understand that type of food and the more you understand that piece of equipment. Switching between multiple pieces of equipment and multiple styles of food is just more difficult. Just like carrying 10 pounds is easier than carrying 20 pounds. And that's why practicing cooking ramen 50 times is great. Practicing cooking ramen 500 times is better. You're going to be better at it than the person who has not practiced it as much as you have. Someone who has cooked a dish fewer times, who has not used the equipment to make the broth and the noodles and the vegetables as much as you have, if you've practiced using those 500 times. Do I sound too passionate about food? I know I'm talking about this as seriously as I talk about civil rights violations, but I can't eat civil rights violations, and I can eat great food. And great food is, I think, emotional for most people. So let's not stop there. What else is awesome about street food? Besides its increased safety, less anxiety, more focus? What is cool is the traditions around the world about how they all make them in different ways, about how street food means different things, but each country has 300, 500, 1,000, 3,000 years of tradition behind a particular dish. And those dishes are there. You're just lucky enough that this old shirtless guy and his old wife playing on her phone next to him, shouting the orders at him, is still making that kind of food dozens, hundreds, thousands of years later in a way they might have made it 3,000 years ago. And he has more practice making that barbecue than any restaurant cook on the street. In any event, we can say he's not falling behind, because they all have fewer menu items, so they are all practicing more with whatever that food is, and they're all using that equipment more. Lao Yeye and Lao Gamma, old grandpa, old grandma, Oji-san, Oba-san, they are cooking with one thing. They aren't switching between an omelet maker and a skillet and a grill and a microwave and whatever else they have to use. A tortilla shaper, a tortilla stamper, a deep fryer. No. Oji-san, Oba-san, Grandma and Grandpa, they're using a grill. She's telling him to make the stuff. Gramps pulls the stuff from his cooler, throws it on the grill, knows exactly what he's doing. The muscle memory is there. He knows when it's done by the smell, the sound, the sight, the feel. He's going to cook it the same way he always has. You can go to a street stall 20 times, and you're going to get a very consistent meal 20 times. If you don't like that one, go to a different street stall. Find the one that's good, and then go back to that as many times as you want to. You're going to get a good meal every time you go back. And this can happen with restaurants, but it's much more rare, in my experience. Probably the biggest reason for that is because restaurants usually have more than one cook. If you have more than one cook, you have varying qualities of food, because nobody is as good at something else as somebody else is. They're pretty much the same, they're nearly the same, or maybe they're a little different. But you're not going to get the meal that one guy knows exactly how you like it and has the ability to cook it like that. And then on Wednesdays or on Saturdays, it's a different guy who just cooks differently. Maybe it's still good, but it's not how you like it. If you go around to all the different stalls and you find somebody who knows what you mean when you say, yeah, can I just get it crispy just on the outside, but not burnt? And they can just read what you mean by crispy by not burnt, just as they can read what a different customer means by crispy but not burnt. By the tone of your voice, they're like, all right, this guy wants it a little bit burnt. But this other guy who said crispy but not burnt just wants it mildly browned, not even very crispy. When you find the gal or guy who can make the food the way you like it, they will make it the same way the next time you go back. And that's incredibly satisfying. And if you want it differently the next time, that was a little too much. Can you make it less crispy? Because you realize now you said crispy and he thought that meant blacken the thing, whereas you just meant brown crispy, not black crispy, not lightly charred. You just want crispy. They say yeah, and they will give it to you how you asked for it. Because it's a one-on-one relationship. If there's one chef, that guy can adjust his skill. If it's a different chef than the guy you had last time, he cannot adjust to what you had last time because he didn't cook it. And even if there is only one guy in an indoor restaurant, the relationship between that one chef and the patrons, separated by the wall back of house, front of house, is not as personal as it is with a street food chef. It's not as direct. So I really appreciate that you get such a singular, attentive, focused experience with every street stall person or every street stall couple who make the food. And I have had this with every food. These are the conglomerated, the aggregate experience of having this in every one of the dozens of countries I've been to and every street food I have. These are all the benefits that all of those street vendors share. The frog guy in Foshan. Best frog in Foshan I had. I tried at least 10 different people who made stir-fried frog, and this guy made it correct. The sauce was not too thin, which is very common. He adds enough spice, which most people don't because it's difficult to mix up the spices, so they don't like to do it. Or it's difficult to chop up the chili peppers, so they don't like to do that work. He also adds in the celery, which you need a little bit of to get the bitterness because it balances the sweet nature of frog meat pretty well. He cooks at exactly the right temperature, which should be super high for frog. And he cooks it for the exact amount of duration that I like, so that you have a chewy but easy to bite through meat at the end of it. And he's so good at it, it takes him 5 minutes to cook it every time. And I think the first time I had to say, I need more spice, because I am a foreigner in China, and they just assume foreigners are lying, even if we say, no, really, I actually want it to be spicy. But after I said that the first time, the next literally 20 times I went to get the frog there, it was always the perfect level of spice. Genlama, Genla. You really want it spicy? Yes, really. Haba? Okay. Stinky tofu, cho tofu in China again. This would be in Beijing. This was in Chengdu, my favorite stinky tofu person. They make different... So stinky tofu is fermented tofu in a brine, basically, for months, or factories make it in a couple days. But they still make it the old way, where you ferment tofu for weeks or months in a huge pot. And then when I order a portion, they take out a few pieces of fermented tofu, put it on a griddle so it fries up, put the fried tofu into a little cup, put some green onions, vegetables on top, pour in some of the brine onto the tofu. Boom, stinky tofu. So it's really just the name. It is stinky, but, cheese is stinky too. It's like if we didn't call cheese cheese, if we called cheese stinky milk. Well, though most stinky tofus are pretty stinky, and most cheeses are probably not as stinky, but they call it that because it's a fermented tofu. So when you hear stinky tofu, don't think like, ew, it's gone bad. Stinky tofu is fermented tofu, just like kimchi is fermented cabbage. Kombucha, fermented tea, or miso, fermented soybeans. And stinky tofu is made in like 100, probably more, different ways than I could count. Sometimes it's the white tofu, sometimes it's the black tofu. Those can be made in 50 different ways, just the tofu itself. Every broth is made by one person whose grandparents taught them how to make it, and that comes from a line of 100 generations of them. Sometimes literally, with other more basic Chinese foods. I think stinky tofu is only a few hundred years old, or it's like from the 1600s. Let's see. Yeah, it's like 400 years old, tops. Chodofu, or stinky tofu. Chodof, as I like to say. But you can prepare it in any number of ways. And I didn't eat it for like 2-3 years in China. I finally started eating it. No, you know what? I don't think I ate it until my 5th year in China, because it was after I moved to Chengdu. I had tried it before, but I didn't appreciate the flavor because the brine is so salty and sour, and the tofu is fermented. So the flavors are so strong that I didn't get used to it, and the smell is bad, that I just didn't want to try it, really give it a fair chance until I was in Chengdu, and there was a stinky tofu guy selling outside of my house every day. I walked back from school, from teaching, and I got it one day, and his was good. Oh, and he had chopped pickled green beans mixed in. If they have chopped pickled green beans mixed in, that's the type of broth I like, with the black fermented tofu, not the white fermented tofu. I prefer the black fermented tofu. But I did try the different chodofs all around China. Also, I'm going to say chodofs. It's pronounced chodofu, but I speak every language idiosyncratically. So I tried it in pretty much every province that I ever saw chodofs, and I liked it the most from this dude near my school outside of my apartment. And when I went back to the next day, it was the exact same. Just that great taste. Everything was combined. The fermented tofu was how I liked it. The texture was just how I liked it. There wasn't too much sourness. Those fermented chopped green beans were in there. Or fermented chopped string beans, I believe. Very salty. Just had everything I wanted, and every time I went back, it was the same. And I liked it every single time identically. And I got it for a year and a half while I was there. Almost, maybe not almost every time he was out there, but easily once a week. So nearly 100 times I got this pretty complex dish, at least complex in preparation. And over that entire year, every time he made it, every time I got it, it tasted just as good as it had the last time. It had the same mixture of salt and soy and sweet and sour. The black tofu was the same texture. He fried it the same way. His wife yelled my order at him the same way every time I told her what I was going to get. And every time I went, after like the second time, they noticed that I really liked the fermented string beans, the pickled string beans, and they gave me extra pickled string beans every time I went, because they just saw, like, I loved picking those out and munching on the salty, crispy crunchiness. Now, I bring this up, and I'm going into detail because next to that guy, like, the door of a restaurant was maybe 20 feet away behind him. Or he probably wasn't standing right in front of it, so let's 30, 40 feet away. But right behind him, basically, was a restaurant that had my favorite of another type of Chinese dish, Ganbian Suji Do, which is called different things in different places of China, but it's dry fried green beans with crispy, not burnt, discrete ground pork. So you have little bits of ground pork all around. It's not in one piece. It's all mixed in with all the dry fried green beans. And I was so excited to find that dry fried green bean dish at this restaurant because that is a very difficult dish to find made correctly because it is dry fried. And it is a lot easier to change ingredients and change the recipe so that it's easier for the restaurant to cook. So it's very rarely made how it's supposed to be made, which is a thick layer of oil. You fry the green beans once under that oil, basically deep frying them, but in a wok or a pan, so that it pulls all the moisture out of them. Then you take out the beans, throw in the chili peppers, throw in the spices you're going to use. They'll become aromatic after a few seconds, maybe 20 seconds or something like that. And then as soon as the chili peppers, the red chili peppers, start to brown and blacken, as soon as you see the colors of the chili peppers start to change, and the bubbles coming out of the star anise and whatever, they stop bubbling as much, that means you've aromatized your oil. You throw in the meat and maybe a little bit of baijiu, a little bit of clear liquor. That's going to cook really fast. Throw in the garlic. Put the pre-cooked dehydrated green beans back in there. Stir fry everything. Put it on a plate. There should be no oil left. So it'll look like a dry dish, which is very rare in China, hence it's ganbian. They call it dry fried because it's a unique type of dish. But everything is coated in a spicy, extremely aromatic, strong oil. It coats everything, even though there's no puddle of oil under the food. And you have flat green beans, fried perfectly, hundreds of little pieces of fried minced pork, and little bits of garlic and Sichuan peppercorns. It's fantastic. I love it. It's probably my favorite dish in China. And it's kind of an involved process because you do have to cook the beans twice. And the first time you cook them, you have to make sure to dehydrate them. If you just fry them but take them out too early, then they're going to be mushy and crappy, and the outside isn't going to crisp at all, which is what the second frying of the green beans does. It crisps the outside skin without burning anything. What's a lot more common is just a green bean stir fry with minced pork meat, garlic. They just throw everything at the same time, put it on a plate, give it to you. And they call it Ganbian Suji Do, or Ganbian Doujiao, but it's not Ganbian Doujiao. It's just Chao Cai. It's just a stir fry. But I was lucky to have kind of stumbled upon the correctly made dish at the first place I ordered it, and I could not believe how good it was. And so I tried it at restaurants all across China. And literally 4 out of 5 restaurants, or it might be more, made it the fast way. And they didn't use flat green beans. They used string beans, which have a very different texture, much thicker shell. They don't crisp as much. It's just oily string beans. They're not very pleasant, and they shouldn't be in that dish because it's a different ingredient. It would be like cooking steak instead of fish. It's a different thickness, takes different heat. It's just a different ingredient to cook with. But it's a lot easier to do, so most restaurants don't cook it correctly. But this place, I went there, I tried their Ganbian Doujiao, and it was delicious. And I was like, holy crap. And I told them when I was there and I had it the first time, I was like, you made it right. And the old grandpa who cooked it came out, handed it to one of his descendants, and that guy who was the waiter brought it to me. And the old guy couldn't believe I ordered it because it's also not a very popular dish. It's like an older traditional type dish. I don't know why it's so good. So when I ordered it, the grandpa, I could hear him asking, like, who got it? Oh, the foreigner out front. And the grandpa looked down and he's like, the foreigner wants Ganbian Doujiao? Like, yeah. So he cooks and brings it out. And the grandpa who cooked it walks up to me. There's chairs all along the wall, and I'm sitting by myself at a table. And he doesn't come up and say hello or anything. He just sits like 3 chairs away, puts his elbow down on his knee and his hand on his cheek, and just watches me eat it. Just like as a spectacle, which is pretty common when I'm around in China and I just order something that they're like, no, local people like that. You don't like it. A Chinese person, if I order something they think foreigners don't like, or they culturally know because they were told it so many times that foreigners don't like, they'll watch the foreigner eat it. I've seen it like 100 times. Like frog, the first time I got frog, that guy who I mentioned makes it perfectly. His wife was just like, huh, and just like watched me eat it. No, he likes it. He wasn't lying. He loves frog. And I went back to that restaurant and got my Ganbian Doujiao who knows how many times. Many, many times. Probably even more times than I got that stinky tofu, because if I find a good Ganbian Doujiao place, it's difficult for me not to eat it every day. You know, you traditionally deep fry the beans once and then you stir fry them after, so I know it's not a super healthy dish, so I try not to eat it every day, but I am perfectly happy eating Ganbian Doujiao twice a week for sure. I'm very happy doing that, but I'm happy eating it 4 or 5 times a week. That dish rocks. And depending on where you are, it's called Ganbian Doujiao or Ganbian Sujido, but Sujido is like the string beans. It's tricky because sometimes they don't even call Sujido green beans. They're talking about string beans, so it's all mixed up. You just have to find the place that makes it the traditional correct way. But this place made it the right way. And I went there, I think 3 times in a row, and I was like, I can't believe I found my favorite dish a 5-minute walk from my house. And then the 4th time I went, it was shitty. It was all wrong. I think he still had the right type of beans, but I'm not even sure of that. But the chili pepper was not cooked enough, so it wasn't crispy. So the oil was not aromatic. None of the spices had been fried long enough to imbue the oil with the scent of the spices or the aroma and fragrance and taste of the spices. The beans were clearly only cooked once. They were clearly not dehydrated, so they were just wet beans. They were not even wet beans, they were oil soaked. They were oily beans. Oily, mushy beans. And then the minced pork, which is supposed to be like 300 different grains split up and mixed in with everything, was a few oily, soft, not crispy clumps of ground pork. It was mixed, like there were a bunch of discrete pieces, but it was not crispy, and that's a defining feature of Ganbian Doujiao, of that dish. This was just green beans, spices, and ground pork mixed in oil, hot oil, and then served to me, but all of the texture was wrong. And the taste was wrong because the aromatics weren't infused into the oil. And there was oil in the bottom of the dish, which is how you know they stir-fried it instead of dry-fried. They used too much oil, they stir-fried it, and then there's oil in the bottom. So it's not even dry-fried because there's a bunch of oil. It's wet-fried. It's regular fried one-time mushy beans and mushy pork. And I was like, ah, damn it. Now, even that crappy rendition of Ganbian Doujiao is still good enough that I ate it. But it's not what I would call good. There's so much good food in China and everywhere that I've had before that was not a good dish. If I hadn't had it made perfectly already 3 times from that same restaurant, I never would have gone back to that restaurant. But because I knew the grandpa could make it right, I assumed there's a different cook in the kitchen. I didn't see anyone come out. I didn't see the grandpa either. But I was like, there is no way the man who made the first 3 dishes suddenly decided to make this completely incorrectly and terribly. There's no way you could lose that much cooking ability from one day to the next. The whole personality of the dish was different. And the quality. So what I did for the next few days was walk by the plate glass windows, because the whole front of the restaurant was plate glass windows. And I just walked around the block, and then I walked back, and then I walked back, and I would just glance in, and I saw the grandpa like look out from the kitchen, or he was walking out or something. And when I saw him, I was like, okay. And I went in, ordered my Ganbian Doujiao or Sujido, I can't remember which one they called it. And he cooked it perfectly again. And I was like, yes. And that's what I did from then on. I just walked by, and if I could see the old man somewhere in the restaurant, I was like, cool. And I went and got my Ganbian Doujiao. But if he wasn't there, then I tried to avoid it. And sometimes I did see him, and then I ordered it, and he didn't walk into the kitchen, and I was like, oh shit, that means that other guy, whoever it is back there. And every time he wasn't in the kitchen, I got the lazy green bean stir fry that does not taste very good. And that happens with restaurants, but it happens far more rarely to street stalls. Because it's one dude, and he's been making the same thing the same way with the same equipment thousands of times. So when you order it, and it's that guy cooking, you get the same thing. And I like that sort of consistency in a restaurant. When I come across a restaurant, even if there's only one person in it, like it's a one-person sushi restaurant, like in Panama, if they can consistently serve good food, making the different items on the menu, I am beyond impressed. Because that is so rare. That I've found anyway. And very difficult to do. If there's one guy at a street stall, that food is consistent. So all I have to do is find the guy who is the best cook. The street stall vendor who is the best cook. If there are two cooks in the kitchen, two cooks in the restaurant, they might have really good cooperation, or they might share how they cook with each other. So you might get lucky, it might be good most of the time. But I mean, beyond two, and I'm even suspicious of two cooks in the kitchen, 3 or more, it is a crapshoot. You are hit or miss with the dishes no matter what you get. Because you don't know who's going to be in the kitchen, and even if you do know who is in the kitchen, if the guy you like had to be doing a different type of food all day, if he had to be making ramen all day, and then they're like, oh, that guy who likes the sushi's here, and then he has to switch to sushi, it might not be as good, even if he's really good at sushi. He's just been working on different equipment all day, so he made a mistake when he made the sushi this time. Or he didn't pay enough attention to it this time, because he has to get back to the ramen, which can be very labor and time intensive. And there are a few other fun and interesting cultural differences regarding street food. And there's not a ton of huge fundamental differences, but I like the differences there are. The variety. American street food, Central or South, it's a grill. In the US, they usually have large vans, but in Central South America, it's a grill with 4 rigid legs on the ground, and someone drove them there, or they put it on the back of a motor scooter, took it over there, set up, put the coals in, started up the fire, let the coals burn to a glow, and then they're ready to go. Maybe they have to make 2 trips, because they have all their stuff at home, and they only have a motor scooter, so they have to take 2 trips. What I love about Chinese street food, and really all Asian street food, is that it's almost always mobile. So like I mentioned, in Thailand, if you're going to get the good squid, my favorite thing was I saw a guy basically carrying a large wheelbarrow. It was a grill with 4 legs, but wheels were on the end of all 4 legs, and he had a wheel lock, so when he put it down, it didn't move at all. And he could cook squid as long as he wanted. And he also had 2 aluminum poles perpendicular to the grill legs, right at grill level, sticking out just a foot to the side, just enough to hold on to. So that if he had to move, if he didn't want to be hassled by the cops, maybe he didn't have a permit, or if he wanted to go to a different neighborhood where there might be more customers, he just picks up those 2 handles, the grill is still glowing, there's squids on top, and walks over to a new area. And I probably like China the best, maybe just because I was there the longest. But their way is not manual. They all have motorized sanlun chus. And san is 3, lun is wheel, and chu is vehicle or car. And these 3-wheeled vehicles, about half the length and width of a regular car, have a driver's area, a driver's cab, up front with 1 or 2 seats. And then either a tiny flatbed in the back for hauling stuff, or for all the street vendors, usually an aluminum cube, and their whole kitchen is inside there. And they don't go inside it, it's not big enough for that. And it's not even a connected cube most of the time, it's just that flatbed area in the back of the sanlun chu is a kitchen. The grill, or the pot, or whatever, is welded or fastened to the flatbed, so they don't have to set anything up, really. Most people still use coal, but if they're using gas, they park the sanlun chu, they get out, walk behind it, move the coolers to wherever they're supposed to be so they can easily grab their spices or meat or vegetables, turn on the gas, and they start going. Or, more often, in China, they still use coal, so they'll put down the coal, light a fire, and they're ready to go in 20 minutes. But they don't have to spend any time putting the equipment in the right areas or anything like that. It's just like a smaller food truck. And that's great because it uses less gas and it's easier to maintain, but you can still legally drive it all around your neighborhood. They don't have to carry any of that. Like, these grandmas and grandpas use big pots or sometimes big machines if they're doing the PGO Kaoya, that beer-fried duck that I love. That's like it's a rotary wheel that it spins and air dries the ducks on. It would be pretty difficult to carry all of that stuff on the motor scooter, which is very common in China. But in the Sanluncha, it's just permanently connected. So whenever a duck is ready, they put it on one of the hooks on the rotary wheel, it spins around, air dries the duck. They don't have to mess with the wheel at all. The wheel probably hasn't moved since the day they attached it, maybe welded it or bolted it to the back of that Sanluncha. And all the street vendors do that. The ones who make the jianbing, the crispy folded Chinese omelet, they have a little Sanluncha, they drive to a spot, turn on the propane, because they're all using a griddle to make these omelets. And boom, they're making omelets right away. They had to drive there, but they don't have to set anything up. It's right there. As soon as the guy turns on the gas, a line starts forming and people start getting their jianbing, their crispy folded Chinese omelet. So I like the Chinese system the best because it's the most efficient, in my eyes. There's the least amount of setup. You get the same amount of work done or more. Plus, you get to move around according to customer demand or your own initiative. And it lends itself to a sort of organization. Like, if you just have the grill, and this is totally fine, but if you put a grill on the side of the road, there's no like borders to your area. So the cops could be like, hey, you're taking up this sidewalk. And kind of, because you don't have borders to your cooking area. But these Sanlunchas, they're all clearly defined. They are all vehicles. And you are taking up about 9 feet of space, maybe. Maybe a little less. Also, if the cops show up, you just get in and you're like, and you just scoot away on your little electric motor and drive around the street to a different street. So it's a very convenient, efficient, and productive vehicle from which to vend tasty street food. Why set something up and take it down every day if you don't have to? They realized with these Sanlunchas that use very little gas and are most often motorized, like electric motorized these days, they don't have to. Their grill will be back there, or their griddle, and they'll have the ducks or the eggs or the meat or whatever in the space around it. And one person can do it. They don't need people to help them set up either. So they trundle along in their Sanluncha at a steady 7 miles per hour to whatever spot or park that they like. They step out, light the coals or turn on the propane stove, and are open for business. In Taiwan, there'll be a bunch of them lining the beaches. You'll just have 20 street vendors in a row, and you can try a small squid from each of them and see who the best one is. It's that old grandma, it always is. She has the best squid, and it's gonna taste like squid you've never tasted before. Like, I like all street food's good. I like eating a bunch of different street food. I don't mind if the street food is not perfect, because there are so many stalls that I can keep trying them. It's still good, and I can just keep looking for the perfect one, and I very often find them. By walking down streets or wherever, as long as I'm walking, by walking around Asian neighborhoods near the main roads, not usually on the main roads, or parks, anywhere there's enough people, you'll find so many stalls to try. So many Sanlunchas vending out tasty, savory treats. I love India too because their food's all vegetarian, so there's not a ton of fat dripping onto the coals or anything, so there's a lot less smoke and a lot less smell with all the Indian street food vendors. So you can have these confined spaces and there just isn't as much smoke or smell as there are in a lot of Asian ones, which sell a lot more meat. And sometimes there's no cooking at all, like the Golgappa, just that thin dough ball with vegetables and soup inside. That's fantastic. So I love Indian street food. I love street food everywhere, but it is different across countries, and it's worth trying out in all the countries that it's in. Because it's different in every country, and it's delicious in every country. I hope this rant was fun. I'm surprised I was able to stop myself from talking about street food as much as I did. I didn't even mention like takoyaki in Japan, or a lot of the different barbecues outside of the squid. Look at me, practicing restraint. Definitely didn't just forget all of that. Restraint. Thank you so much for listening. Have a great rest of your day, and I will talk to you soon.